Harry's Wife, Part 102.86, documentary. How they really met. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. As you know, narcissists appear in all walks of life. Commonly, you will come across them in a romantic setting. But how do you get to that romantic position? Well, you could have the narcissist already in your friendship group. Or it's somebody that you've met through your work, there at your workplace, or as a consequence of, they might be a contact, a client, a supplier, a customer. They might be a competitor within a particular field of work. It might be somebody that you've met through one of your clubs or organisations that you belong to, down at the tennis club or the golf club. As you know, we appear in all manner of different places, but we do have our hunting grounds, particular venues and locations where certain types of narcissists prefer to find our victims. This is primarily linked to the cadre of narcissist. An easy way to distinguish between school and cadre: school governs behaviours, cadre's preferences. And thus, when it comes to those hunting grounds, somatics have certain preferences, as do elites, cerebrals, and victims. Sometimes there's a little bit of crossover, but there are separate and distinct hunting grounds that the narcissists lurk in. For example, somatics, unsurprisingly, utilize gyms, dating sites, bars, high-end restaurants as potential hunting grounds. They will also use certain outdoor pursuits and physical clubs. For example, you might belong to a kayaking club or an orienteering club and such like. Cerebrals are more likely to be found in an academic environment, university, at the reading rooms, the literary and philosophical society. They could be found in an orchestra. They might be found in an art appreciation group. If you want to understand more about where the narcissist hunts, you can do no better than read my excellent book, Sitting Target, which you'll find in the Knowledge Vault, link in the video description, or you can obtain it on Amazon. Here I explain in detail what we look for in our victims, how we go about it, and also the hunting grounds in which we operate, so that you can be aware of what those are, so that you can either avoid them, or, if you're in them, to ensure that you go in with reduced emotional thinking, to ensure that you are not then captured, that you're not ensnared by a narcissist, so that you don't have to go to a position of hypervigilance, but you show a degree of alertness that there could be basically knocks at work. Invariably, when we identify a target, be it instinctively with an unaware narcissist or aware with conscious means, an aware narcissist, we focus on certain aspects of what you can provide to us vis-à-vis the prime aims. Are you easy to control, or do you give the potential of being easy to control? How good might your fuel be? What character traits might be there for the taking? And, of course, what tasty residual benefits exist? With regard to old Ginger Bollocks, it was evident, notwithstanding his strong narcissistic traits, that he could be easily controlled. A combination of lashings of spicy poontang, combined with a false compassion about his circumstances and mirroring with regard to his interests, would enable him to be brought under control so that he would roll onto his back and have his tummy tickled. Harry, of course, would provide oodles of fuel. He shows his emotions readily, in effect wears his heart on his sleeve. He's not an individual that's aloof and of an icy character. Indeed, being a bit of a ginger hothead means that there are some geezer qualities about him. Naturally, there's character traits galore that Harry's wife could sink her claws into, and those residual benefits, oh, the residual benefits: fame, networks, status, title, and of course, the wonga, the money, the dough, the spondulics. Ka-ching! Accordingly, Harry's wife was understandably attracted to Harry's wife or rather to Harry, because he ticked those boxes with regard to the prime aims. Remember, she doesn't see that. But what her narcissism did was cause her to think he'll be a good catch because he's got money. So although she knows that she's into it for the money, and also the fame and the status, she doesn't know that they're residual benefits. Her narcissism also compelled her to believe that she was genuinely drawn to him for him being who he was and that they had shared interests. Externally, of course, we can see that that's not the case and that it is mirroring. Nevertheless, her narcissism has to compel her to see subconsciously that he's a good catch for the prime aims, and then consciously cause her to understand and believe why she'd want to be with him. And therefore it would be a mixture of, yes, I'd do well to marry him because he's a prince and who wouldn't want that, and also he's wealthy. There are many people who think that way who are not narcissists. But also because her narcissism would compel her to think, here's somebody that I would look after. Here's somebody that I could care about. Here's somebody that I could have adventures with and travel the world. Here's somebody who's interested in charity, like I am as well. And therefore we could bring our two respective desires together and change the world. Thus, her narcissism allows her to feel a particular way about Harry and view him in a particular way so that she is motivated thereon to go after him and seduce him. Notwithstanding her protestations, of course, in the recent AOL interview that I analysed of Slow and Steady Wins the Race, her narcissism compelled her to go hell for leather by developing an infatuation for Harry and layering on those various hoovers and manipulations in order to get hold of him. We're told that part of the docuseries will be allowing them on Netflix to tell their love story. Marvellous. How wonderful. Naturally, we have been told much about it before, and in essence, that as a consequence of what was a blind date through Harry's friend, who also knew Harry's wife, that the two were brought together, and that they met for drinks and then dinner, and away they went. The actual detail of that night has been speculated upon, of course, by improbably named and now disappeared from the planet in that pile of nonsense, Finding Freedom. And Tom Bauer has touched on it a little also. But there's actually a very short documentary that has been made that shows precisely what happened on that night that they met. Bearing in mind what I've explained to you about what attracts the narcissist to the particular victim and the hunting grounds, a somatic narcissist, that is Harry's wife, would of course be looking around in high-end restaurants and bars, spas, gyms, that type of thing. And therefore it's no surprise that as self-professed foodie, she goes searching for men in bars, restaurants of a high-end variety. This short documentary was being compiled by somebody called Lisa Marie, and it's only right because of the exceptional accuracy and quality that Lisa Marie has created in this that I bring you her documentary under the umbrella of this channel about narcissism. It deserves such a platform, such as the excellence with which it's been created. What's also staggering is the similarity between the tale teller, the narrator, and person playing Harry's wife as to just how similar they look. It's quite staggering. And it's evident that this person has researched her thoroughly, as they've got her mannerisms, speech, and overall behaviour down to a T. So, why not let Lisa Marie showcase her exceptional talents for you now, as you can embark upon the short documentary telling you how Harry and Harry's wife really met.
This episode, I'd like to talk about how I met my sweet, dear, dear husband, Harry. It's really quite a funny story. I was in London promoting my TV show Suits when a mutual friend asked if I'd like to go on a blind date.
Hey girl, you trying to meet the prince?
Oh, hell yeah! Now, before she even set us up, the very first question I thought was, is he nice?
How much money he make though?
Our first date was at a place called Dean Street Townhouse. Harry enjoyed a few beers while I sipped on a martini.
I can lick it, I can ride it while you slipping and sliding. I can do all them little tricks and keep the dick up inside it.
We had an amazing intellectual conversation that bonded us. So I take it you've never had vanilla and chocolate. We simply chatted for 3 hours that night. And by the end of the night, we knew we had to see each other the next day.
Listen, if you don't call me tomorrow, ginger face, I'm gonna be really mad. I'm gonna be really, really mad at you. Stop it. Take my number down. Stop playing around. Take my number. Yes, yep, 4, 3. Yes, that's it. Don't be like those American guys. You're English. Dapper gentleman. I'm expecting a call from you tomorrow. I better hear my phone ring, and I better hear you on the other line. Hello, love. Call me.
And this concludes today's episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. And in yo face, Joe Rogan, guess who's got the #1 podcast in the nation? In the motherfucking nation. You can edit it out. Come on. You actually should leave it in there. You should leave it in there. He called me a hussy. He called me a hussy. Joe Rogan called me a hussy.